Here's how it works. Many people think mummies only come from Egypt. This is a common idea, but it is not true. Mummies are found all over the world. They come from many different cultures, and they are found in many different environments. It is a big mistake to think of mummies as just an Egyptian thing. The truth is much wider. Mummification is simply the process of preserving a body. This preservation can happen in different ways. Sometimes people do it on purpose. They want to keep the body from decaying. This is called artificial mummification. Other times, nature does the work. Certain conditions can dry out or freeze a body. They can stop it from breaking down. This is called natural mummification. Both types lead to mummies. People have many reasons for preserving bodies. In some places, it was about religion. They believed in an afterlife. The body needed to be whole for the soul to continue. In other places, it was about showing respect, or it was about keeping a leader's power alive. Sometimes, it was just a way to remember loved ones. People did not want to let go. And some cultures preserved everyone, not just the rich or powerful. Natural mummification is often surprising. It happens when the right mix of conditions comes together. Very dry places can do it. Deserts are good examples. The lack of moisture pulls water from the body. This stops bacteria from growing. Very cold places work too. Ice and frozen ground keep bodies from decaying. The cold just stops everything. Bogs are another strange place. They are wetlands. The water there is acidic. It has very little oxygen. These conditions can tan skin and preserve soft tissues. The body looks like leather. So, the idea of a mummy is not limited to sand and pyramids. It is a human story. It is a story about death. It is about how different people faced it, and it is about how they tried to overcome it. They wanted to hold on to life in some form. This desire shows up in many places. It shows up in many different ways. And the mummies outside of Egypt teach us so much. They tell us about different worlds. They show us how clever people were. They found ways to preserve bodies with what they had. They used the environment around them, or they learned how to change it. This is a very human thing to do. It is about hope. It is about memory. And it is about our place in the world. It is a story that goes back thousands of years. And it spans continents. We often think of mummies as scary, or as something out of a movie. But they are much more than that. They are ancient people. They are people who lived and breathed. They had families, they had beliefs, and they left behind a part of themselves. They left a record. This record lets us learn about them. It lets us learn about their lives, and it lets us learn about their deaths. This is why looking beyond Egypt matters. It opens up a whole new world. It shows us how diverse human history is. It shows us how diverse human ingenuity is. And it shows us that death, while universal, is treated in many unique ways. The next chapters will explore some of these amazing discoveries. They will show you where else mummies are found. They will show you how they were made. And they will show you what they teach us. South America holds some of the oldest mummies in the world, and they are not from Egypt. In fact, they are much older. These are the Chinchorro mummies. They come from what is now Chile and Peru. The Chinchorro people were fishermen. They lived along the dry coast, and they began mummifying their dead around 7,000 years ago. This is about 2,000 years before the Egyptians started. The Chinchorro had a unique way of doing things. They did not just mummify important people, they mummified everyone. This included babies and children. They truly believed in preserving all their dead. Their methods were complex. They developed different styles over time. One style is called the black mummies. This was their earliest method. They would remove all the organs. They would even remove the brain. Then they would strip away the skin and muscle. They cleaned the bones. They often broke the bones to do this. They would dry the bones with hot ashes. Then they would rebuild the body. They used sticks to strengthen the skeleton. They stuffed the body with plant fibers. They used clay to fill out the shape. Then they reattached the skin, or they used sea lion skin. They covered the body with a layer of black manganese paint. This gave them their name. They often wore wigs of human hair, and they added clay masks. Later, they developed red mummies. This method was a bit different. They made cuts in the body. They removed organs and muscles. But they did not take apart the skeleton. They dried the body with heat. They used ashes and charcoal. And then they restuffed it. They used feathers, plants, and clay. They stitched the skin back on. They painted the body with red ochre, and they left the face untouched. They might use a small wig. This method was simpler. It was also less invasive. The Chinchorro mummies tell us a lot. They show a deep respect for the dead, they show a strong community bond, their environment helped too. The very dry desert air helped preserve the bodies naturally, but the Chinchorro did not rely on nature alone. They actively worked to preserve their dead. Their mummies are a huge part of human history. They show a very early belief in keeping bodies whole. Moving further south, to the Andes Mountains, we find more mummies. These are often Inca mummies. The Inca people lived high in the mountains. They also mummified their dead. But their methods and reasons were different. They often preserved their emperors. So they treated these mummies as if they were still alive. They would bring them out for ceremony. They would offer them food. This shows a deep connection to their ancestors, but the Inca also had another type of mummies. These were the Capacocha children. These were children who were sacrificed. They were often taken to very high mountain peaks. They were left there as offerings to the gods. They might have been given a drink that made them sleepy. Then they were left to die from the cold. The extreme cold and dry air preserved them perfectly. The Lulelaco children are famous examples. They were found on a volcano in Argentina. They are some of the best preserved mummies ever found. They are thousands of years old. Their clothes are still bright. Their skin is a really good series. Their skin is smooth. And you can even see their eyelashes. They were found with gold and silver figures, and they had textiles. These finds tell us about Inca rituals. They tell us about their clothing, and they tell us about their beliefs. Another famous Inca mummy is Juanita. She is also called the Ice Maiden. She was found on Amparo Mountain in Peru. She was a young girl. She was sacrificed about 500 years ago. She was also incredibly well preserved by the cold. Her body showed signs of good health before her death. This suggests she was specially chosen. She wore fine textiles. She had many grave goods with her. She taught us so much about Inca life and death. The mummies of the Andes are different from the Chinchorro. They show different cultural practices, but both are amazing examples. They show how people adapted to their environment. They used what they had to honor their dead, and they left behind incredible stories for us to discover. They prove that mummification is a global phenomenon. It is not just an Egyptian one. Mummies are not limited to South America. We find them in North America too, and in Europe, Asia, and even the Pacific. Each place tells a unique story. Each mummy shows us different ways of life and death. In North America, ancient mummies have been found. One famous example is Spirit Caveman. He was found in Nevada, USA. He is one of the oldest mummies in North America. He's over 10,000 years old. He was naturally mummified. The dry conditions in the cave preserved him. His body was partly dried. He was wrapped in a woven mat. This discovery changed how we think about early people in America. It showed they were more complex than we thought. Another interesting group comes from Florida, USA. These are the Windover bog bodies. They are about 8,000 years old. They were found in a peat bog. The unique bog conditions preserved their brains, even though the rest of their soft tissue was gone. This is very rare. The bog environment is acidic, it is low in oxygen. This stops decay. It also tans the skin, but in Windover, the brains were preserved by certain minerals in the water. These mummies give us a rare look at ancient brain matter. We can study their diet and health. The dry caves and cliff dwellings of the American Southwest also hold mummies. These are often from the Anasazi or ancestral Pueblo people. They were naturally mummified by the dry desert air. They are often found in a sitting position. They are wrapped in blankets or mats. These mummies show us how people lived in those harsh environments. They show us their clothes. They show us their health. Across the Atlantic, Europe has its own mummies. The most famous are the bog bodies. These are found in peat bogs all over Northern Europe. Countries like Denmark, Ireland, the UK, and Germany have them. Tolland Man from Denmark is very well known. He was found with a rope around his neck. He looked like he was just sleeping. His skin was tanned by the bog. His hair was still there. Even his last meal was in his stomach. Lindo Man from England is another example. He was also a bog body. He had signs of a violent death. Bog bodies are preserved because of the bog's special chemistry. It is very acidic. It has no oxygen. This stops bacteria from working. It also turns skin into a leathery material. It preserves hair and nails. But it often dissolves bones. These mummies give us a look into the Iron Age. They show us their clothes, they show us their diets, and they hint at ancient rituals or sacrifices. Italy also has mummies, not from bogs, but from crypts. The Capuchin catacombs in Palermo, Sicily are famous. They hold thousands of mummified bodies. These date from the 17th and 19th centuries. The Capuchin friars developed a way to dry out bodies. They drained fluids, they used specific rooms. They preserved people from all walks of life. The most famous is Rosalia Lombardo. She was a little girl who died in 1920. She looks like she is still alive. Her preservation is amazing. She is called Sleeping Beauty. Further north, Greenland has mummies too. In the small Inuit settlement of Kileksuk, a remarkable discovery was made. An entire family of mummies was found in a cold, dry cave. They were naturally preserved. The freezing temperatures and dry air did the work. They are over 500 years old. These mummies wore their original clothes. They had their tools with them. They show us how Inuit people live. They show us their clothing, their tattoos, and their health. Now, let's look at Asia. The Tarim Basin in Xinjiang, China, holds ancient mummies. These are sometimes called the Urumqi mummies. They are thousands of years old. They were preserved by the extremely dry desert air. Yes, they have very distinct European features. They wore wool clothes. They had elaborate textiles. They hint at ancient migrations. They show connections between distant cultures. And they tell us about the early people of the Silk Road. In the Altai Mountains of Siberia, Russia, frozen mummies were found. Well, the most famous is the Siberian Ice Maiden. She's also known as Princess Ukak. She was a Pazyryk woman. She lived over 2,500 years ago. She was buried in a kurgan. This is a burial mound. Water seeped in. It froze around her. This created a natural ice coffin. She was preserved perfectly. She had elaborate tattoos. She wore fine silks. She had a grand headdress. She was buried with horses. She gives us a rare glimpse into a nomadic culture. Even in the Philippines, mummies exist. The fire mummies of Kabayan are unique. These people artificially mummified their dead. They used a special process. It involves smoking the body. They put herbs on it, they slowly dried it over a fire. This created a mummified body. They are found in burial caves. These mummies show another distinct cultural practice. They are a testament to human ingenuity. These examples show how widespread mummification is. It is a human response to death. And it takes many forms, it uses many different environments, and it spans almost every continent. Bodies can be preserved in many ways. It is not just one trick. Both nature and people have found creative methods. These methods stop decay. They allow bodies to last for a very long time. Let's look at artificial mummification first. This is when people do things to the body. They want to stop it from rotting. The ancient Egyptians are famous for their embalming. They removed organs. They used salts like natron to dry the body. Then they wrapped it. But other cultures have their own ways. The Chinchorro people in South America are a good example. We talked about them earlier. They took bodies apart, they dried the bones, they rebuilt them with plants and clay. Then they covered them with paint. This was a very hands-on process. It was a clear human effort. In the Philippines, the Kabayan mummies show another method. They were fire mummies. People smoked the bodies. They used special herbs. This slowly dried the flesh. It also gave the bodies a specific appearance. This was a deliberate cultural practice. It was a way to keep their dead close. Sometimes drying is part of the process. The Guanches of the Canary Islands did this. They removed organs, they packed bodies with herbs and minerals. Then they left them to dry. They used natural caves, the dry air helped, but the human actions were key. Other cultures used chemicals or resins. These could slow decay. They could harden the tissues. The goal was always the same. It was to make the body last, to keep it from turning to dust. Now, let's talk about natural mummification. This happens without human help. It relies on the environment. The right conditions are rare, but when they combine, they work wonders. Extreme dryness is a big one. Deserts are perfect for this. The lack of water means no bacteria can grow. The body just dries out. It shrinks. It becomes leathery. The Tarim Basin mummies are a good example. So are some of the mummies from the American Southwest. And the Inca mummies in high, dry mountains. The air itself acts like a slow oven. It bakes the moisture out. Extreme cold is another powerful force. Freezing temperatures stop all decay. Bacteria cannot grow. Chemical reactions slow down or stop. Bodies can stay perfectly preserved for thousands of years. The Inca Capacocha children are examples. They froze on mountain peaks. The Siberian Ice Maiden also froze in her tomb. The Greenland mummies were frozen in a cave. Ice is a very good protector. Bogs are unique. We mentioned them earlier. Peat bogs are full of acidic water. They have almost no oxygen. These conditions create a natural tanning effect. The skin becomes like leather. His hair and nails can last, but bones often dissolve. Tolan Man and other bog bodies show this. Their skin is dark and soft. Their faces are very clear. Sometimes a mix of conditions works together. High altitude can mean both cold and dryness. This is what happened to the Inca mummies. It was a perfect storm for preservation. There is another type of preservation called adipocere. It is sometimes called grave wax. This happens in wet, anaerobic environments. It is when body fat turns into a waxy, soap-like substance. It is not exactly mummification, but it is a form of preservation. It can keep the body's shape. It can happen in old coffins or muddy soil. It is a different process from the drying or freezing we usually think of. The surprising thing is what can be preserved. Hair, skin, and even internal organs can last. Clothes, jewelry, and tattoos can still be seen. Sometimes, scientists can even find blood vessels, or muscle tissue. This detail is what makes mummies so valuable. They are not just bones, they are a window into the past. They show us bodies as they were. The environment plays the biggest role in natural mummification. It shows that nature itself can be an amazing preserver. But people have also found clever ways. They have learned to work with nature, or they have invented their own methods. All of these ways show a deep human connection to death. They show a desire to make things last. Mummies are more than just old bodies. They are time capsules. They hold secrets from the past. And studying them helps us understand a lot about human history. They teach us things we could not learn any other way. What do they tell us? First, they give us clues about diet. Scientists can analyze hair, bone, and even stomach contents. They find out what people ate. Did they eat plants? Did they eat meat? Were they starving? What was their last meal? For example, Tolan Man's stomach showed a meal of seeds and plants. This gave us a direct look at an Iron Age diet. Mummies also tell us about diseases. Ancient bones can show signs of arthritis. Soft tissues might show tumors or tuberculosis. We can find evidence of parasites. This helps us track the history of diseases. It shows how they spread. It shows what conditions people lived in. For instance, some Chinchorro mummies show signs of lung disease. This was perhaps from breathing in ash from cooking fires. Their lifestyle becomes clear too. We can see injuries, we can see signs of hard work. Strong muscles might suggest a physically demanding life. Worn teeth might show a rough diet, or using teeth as tools. The Capacocha children mummies showed no signs of illness or poor diet. This suggested they were well cared for. This supported the idea that they were special. Clothing and textiles are another big area. Many mummies are found with their original clothes. These clothes are often thousands of years old. We learn about weaving techniques. We learn about ancient fashion. We see what materials they used. The Tarim Basin mummies wore woven wool. The Siberian Ice Maiden wore silk. This shows trade routes. It shows technological skill. Mummies also reveal belief systems and rituals. The way a body is mummified. The things buried with it. These tell us about a culture's afterlife beliefs, or their spiritual practices. The Inca mummies sacrificed on mountain peaks are a clear example. Their burial goods and location tell us about their gods and offerings. The Chinchorro mummies show a deep family and community bond. Everyone was preserved. And modern science adds even more. DNA analysis of mummies is powerful. It tells us about genetic relationships. It shows migration patterns of ancient people. It helps us trace human origins. It can even show if certain populations are related to modern ones. Mummies also tell us about the environment of the past. If a mummy was naturally preserved by dryness, it tells us that area was very dry back then. If it was frozen, it tells us about past cold climates. This helps us understand climate change over long periods. But studying mummies also brings up ethical questions. These are human remains. They were once living people. So, how do we balance science with respect? Many museums and scientists work closely with descendant communities. They make sure the remains are treated with dignity. Sometimes mummies are reburied, or they are not put on public display. This respect is very important. Ultimately, mummies connect us to the past in a very real way. We are looking at a person, someone who lived a life, someone who had hopes and fears. They are not just objects, they are a bridge. They connect us to people who lived thousands of years ago. We can see their faces, we can imagine their lives. Every mummy, no matter where it comes from, adds to our understanding. It shows the incredible diversity of human cultures. It shows the human desire to remember. It shows how resourceful people were in preserving life, even after death. The world of mummies is vast. It is much bigger than just Egypt, and it is full of amazing stories waiting to be heard. They are a testament to the enduring human spirit.